Welcome to Planetary Gig Talk, Tales of Music and Magic. I'm your host, Jefferson Glassy, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gig Society, whose mission is creating unity through music. Or, as I like to say, better really, making connections through music with the intention of bringing peace. Once again, we are nowhere near Studio One of the worldwide headquarters of the Planetary Gig Society, but are in a far better place outside Nashville, Tennessee, in amazing Wooten Woods at Spirit of Music Camp, and I have the distinct pleasure to introduce a fabulous musician, good friend, amazing guy, and we're going to have a great conversation, and we have a few other guests too. But anyway, Chris Anander is here. Chris, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Great to be here.
Yeah, so we are out here under the pavilion at night. It's like 11 o'clock or something, 10 o'clock.
10:30ish.
Yeah, 10:30ish. There's some crickets out there. There is a katydid sitting on Chris's arm.
And an armadillo ravaging bugs behind you.
Yeah, he was like 10 feet behind me a second ago. I think we'll be okay though. I think they're just, they won't make too much ruckus or anything.
Small crowd.
Anyway, so we just met, the other day. This is a fabulous camp, and we're hanging out a little bit, and it just seemed like a great thing, great opportunity to be able to talk. Because I know that you're a fabulous musician and have a great ear and all that, because we were doing healing bowls, and I brought my healing bowl, and that's a whole different story. But anyway, I think it was a D, and you said it's a little sharp.
It's a little sharp from a D, and the crystal bowl that is Victor's is a little sharp from an A, so they managed to be almost a perfect fourth. So it worked out lovely.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. What you went to Berklee, I know.
I did.
But when did music sort of come into your life? Was there music in your family? Were your parents musical? Did you start young? Did you have the lessons, or was it through school, or kind of how did music jump into your life?
Most of my development is self-development. Now, my father started the classical guitar program at Queen's College.
Wow.
And he split from my mother 2 days before I was born. He had absolutely zero role in my upbringing. The only reason he's ever laid eyes on me is because I found him in a diner in upstate New York when I was 33. So there was little influence in the home on that.
So other than maybe genetically...
That's really all I have to say. It's either genetic or perhaps, for lack of a better word, some kind of a divine information packet that somehow made its way into my transom at some point. There could be some partial divine information packet going on. Katydid just left. Well, along with the music, just as a brief off topic, I was reading at a collegiate level in kindergarten. Apparently my grandfather brought me home from the store one day when I was 3, and he said to my mother, "He reads." My mother says, "What do you mean he reads?" "I mean he reads." Like, I read every sign in the supermarket,
When you were 3?
Yeah.
Wow.
I read about as well now as I did when I was 5 or 6.
That's...
With no instruction. I'm still not sure how that happened. Musically...
Did your mother play music?
No. She participated in chorus in school, but she was never a musician.
So where did your interest come from then?
It was purely self-driven. My earliest memories are musical memories.
Any in particular?
Yeah, 2 in particular. When I was not yet 2, I was being pushed to church about a block and a half away, Holy Cross Church in New Britain, Connecticut, in a stroller. And all the way down, I had Tchaikovsky's B-flat piano concerto in my brain, and I'm still not sure why. But I remember distinctly the opening, ba 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 bum, ba 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 bum, ba, that piece.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's amazing.
I still don't know why, but there it was.
You must have heard it before.
Perhaps.
Wow.
I mean, same thing. How did I know how to read without being taught? I began to question the validity of reincarnation young, because I didn't have any rational explanation as to why I should be privy to this without any study whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, admittedly, they're not quite clear how all that would have transpired. So that was one example.
The other was my brother had a Battlestar Galactica spaceship, a modular spaceship. It was a nondescript gray reliefed rectangular box with holes in the sides that you could put various parts of the ship on and build your ship any way you wanted.
And you're how old?
I was about the same age, maybe 1.5, 2.
Ooh.
And I had the ship. I was in my mother's bassinet, and sunlight was pouring in through the Venetian blinds. It must have been late in the day because it was a low angle. And I was whooshing the Battlestar Galactica modular ship through the sunbeams coming through the Venetian blinds while Chuck Mangione's Feel So Good played on the AM radio.
Wow. I can't remember anything from when I was that age. Didn't you tell me that you basically remember almost everything?
Much of it, yeah. Yeah, a lot of that's been to my detriment. As a highly neurotic person, I spent a great deal of time focusing on a lot of the negative memories. But it's things like that happened in my early childhood that I would go back to in times of stress or neurosis or anxiety. And I still feel that a lot of the solace for me comes from remembering early childhood before man had put too many greasy fingerprints on my brain.
So when did you sort of pick up an instrument, and what instrument was that, and then what was sort of the trajectory of,
I started
early
on
years?
Violin in kindergarten at De Loretto Elementary School. There were these cheesy, how would you say, particle board, top, bottom, but no sides violins that were mass ordered for the school. And they were using a very simplified precursor to Suzuki method. Which it didn't seem they progressed anybody through, even to 5th grade. So, in kindergarten, I was playing with the 5th graders. And in 5th grade, I was playing with the 5th graders. So there was very little progress in that regard. So I never really had formal training until much later. But I was an avid listener. I listened to anything I could get my hands on. I remember I must have been 4 or 5, and I had a pair of headphones, royal blue headphones with a black padded strap. And I didn't put them on and listen through them. I pretended they were a spaceship bombing the fruit on the kitchen table. And I would listen to the 3rd movement of Mozart's 40th Symphony for that. And it was dramatic. The drama in Mozart's composition was palpable. I remember ebbing and flowing with his development within each individual song, and it made a lasting impression. I mean, it was so much for me that I just got my hands on. I listened to everything I could get my hands on.
Man, and you were like
4.
That's wild. That's amazing. So then you played violin, and I guess you were playing classic. Classic.
I don't think I was very good. I mean, I was good for a 4 or 5 year old.
Right.
But when I was 7, I met a young Chinese boy named Sheng Sung Wang, who played the solo violin part of the Bach Brandenburg Concerto No. 3 with the Hartford Symphony Orchestra. It was at the time, I remember being somewhat demoralized because I thought I was like, I can do this. And then I met this kid, and
he was good.
He was a true wunderkind.
Wow.
I do not know what became of him. I'm sure he's either touring the world or, like many wunderkind, he became sick of being foisted in front of an audience, which I've seen fairly regularly. So in many ways, I consider that fortunate that I wasn't thrust into it against my will, although I think it probably would have gone in line with my will, and I would have liked that at the time.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
Yeah. So how long did you play violin? Is that your kind of main instrument? Did you end up, as you got into your teens, getting in orchestras or bands? Did you go to rock? I mean, how did the trajectory continue?
I played it straight through high school. And I went to New Britain High School. I picked up trumpet so I could join the marching band and go on Disney World trips. That was the chief motivator. I got good enough at it that's what I used as a principal instrument at Berklee. So I went to Berklee for trumpet.
Yeah, when did you decide you wanted to go to Berklee?
Probably late in my junior year at a college fair. In the cafeteria, a number of schools had set up tables with banners and literature with copy all throughout. At the time, I entertained thoughts of going to some conventional undergraduate college because I thought I wanted to be pre-med. In fact, I got waitlisted at MIT. I only went to Berklee because I got in. So I followed a reverse arc. I went to music school and then decided I wanted to become a musician.
Huh. But, well, you must have had fun there. Did you have fun at Berklee?
I did. It was the best and worst time of my life.
Yeah.
Because my high school experience was largely waiting to get out of high school and go to college and experience life for real. Now, all through this time, I never abandoned listening. I was an avid listener of everything I could get my hands on. Now you've got a katydid on your earpiece.
Really?
Yeah, he's just
right on the head, right on the
right there.
Okay. Wow.
So through pretty much up until middle school, I was a classical maven. I loved Chopin, Tchaikovsky, Bach, Mozart. I'm a latecomer to Beethoven. That happened fairly recently, maybe within the past 7 or 8 years, that I really grokked Beethoven. But
did you ever go rock?
I did.
Or other than classical?
I did.
Or?
In middle school, I think is a time fraught with raging animus for everyone. Mm-hmm. I mean, nobody liked middle school. And I discovered Metallica, Megadeth. Actually, my first rock concert was a Motley Crue concert. I didn't like them very much, but I liked the intensity. I liked the energy.
Yeah.
I liked the girls.
Yeah.
But I mean, Metallica and Megadeth and some other bands were clearly expressing a classical background, and I could appreciate that.
I didn't realize that.
The movie Crossroads with Ralph Macchio, where he battles Steve Vai, the Devil's Champion, and Steve Vai recorded what they call Eugene's Trick Bag. It's his arrangement of Paganini's Fifth Caprice for the violin.
Whoa.
And in a way, that was the first time I decided that guitar was a serious instrument. I must have been 10 or 11. So I kept that through college, or I kept that into college. In college, and that was Berklee. Now that is an environment with every kind of music you can think of going on. And so
a lot of hotshot musicians.
There was plenty of that. But there was also the vibe. I mean, there are a lot of, for lack of a better word, professional partiers at Berklee. And they liked jam bands, Grateful Dead, Fish. And I began to explore that. And so I was into Fish for a little while, but for different reasons than it seemed everybody else around me was. It was not atypical that they would go into 25, 30-minute extended jams on a Split Open and Melt or a Reba. And what I really liked about what they did was their compositional oeuvre, that they would really squeeze one variable. It was like Kafka for music, you know? Everything in Kafka is very realistic except for that one detail which is so absurd. But how does a real environment react to that absurdity? It felt a little like that for me. I enjoyed when they would take one variable within their song and really squeeze every last drop out of it. Yeah. And when they stopped doing that, I moved away from them pretty quickly. And it was about the time I was rediscovering a lot of the classical I didn't catch around the first time. And it was really when I got thrust into jazz. And I really grew an appreciation for Miles Davis, Coltrane, Sonny Rollins.
Is this at Berklee or after?
Yes, at Berklee.
At Berklee, yeah.
And that musical development continued throughout and after. So if I can credit Berklee with anything, it was how to discover music, or rediscover music might be better. Yeah.
So then, I mean, fast forward a little bit. You're a teacher now, I think, right? And so for the next X number of years, you were playing in some groups or bands or anything, and then sort of morphed into teaching, or?
Let's see. I did several bands, most of which ended in some kind of enmity. I mean, they never ended well. Yeah. That's also not atypical. But I want to say I really started being a full-time private music teacher circa 1999, 2000.
Yeah. So 20 years you've been doing it.
Yeah, about that.
Why did you decide to kind of go into that? You like teaching, you enjoy getting around different things. You didn't necessarily want to be a professional working musician, or? Well, I mean, you are a professional musician in a sense, but
one thing I lacked throughout my life was guidance. So many of the decisions I made were almost concessions. Gee, maybe I can do this. I don't know what else to do. And that's kind of how I began teaching. Somebody suggested, you'd be a good teacher. Okay, I'll give it a try. I liked it immediately. And I began to build up that as time went on, to the degree that by 2007, 2008, I had some 40 students a week. And I mostly kept up that pace since then.
So you've had a kind of an extraordinary life of music, because so young and such an attraction and knowledge about music, and then teaching. So, it's just kind of a simple question to ask. What is that power of music? I mean, what is that about? But maybe one way to think about it is, what have you seen music do for your students, or how does it affect them? I mean, you could talk about how how you relate to that, but your students must accomplish things, and it's a challenge. And what do you see? How do they react to music as you spend time with them and help showing them things?
Well, experience is the best teacher. And before I go into what I hope to help my students achieve for themselves, I would say that the reason I do it is I am aware of the profound effect the memory of music has on me. If one of the things I do well is remember music. I can remember lots of it. And so I rarely actually listen. I don't put music on and play it and listen. I remember it and listen. And so I'm always playing music in my head. So I drove down here from Connecticut. It's about 14 hours road time. And somewhere in Virginia, I started playing Ravel's Gaspard de la Nuit. It's a piano piece in 3 movements, in particular performed by an Argentine pianist named Marta Argerich, who is one of the finest pianists I've ever heard.
Wow.
And the mere memory of it moves me to tears. And I did that on repeat through most of Virginia. It is that I'd like to impart. I want to impart the passion of it.
So you feel that passion, and you've just always felt that, I guess.
Indubitably, yeah.
Yeah. And, I think that's a great thing. That's really so admirable and, inspiring.
Thank you.
To me, for people who, want to impart that to other folks, because music is such a special, unbelievable, powerful thing. We've been having all these conversations here, and it's just, craziness. But have you seen, some of your students accomplish certain things or grow in certain ways that, you kind of remember or want to talk about?
I've seen some students eclipse things that I've been able to do. Now, I spent a fair amount of time as a guitarist doing two-handed tap techniques.
Uh-huh.
I had a student, his name was Dylan Bowen, one of the smartest people I've ever known. This guy carried 4 majors through Tufts in 4 years.
Oh.
Not throwaway majors. If I remember, poli-sci, computer science, philosophy, and econ. These are not simple majors.
Yeah.
But at one point, he had arranged all 9 minutes of Bach's Toccata and Fugue in D minor for two-handed tap. It was otherworldly. I could never have done what he did. In fact,
I can't even imagine it myself, but,
Now, the flip side to that was he practiced 10, 12 hours a day for 8 months.
Because he loved it.
He injured himself.
He practiced so much he injured himself?
He had to stop playing.
Wow. But he had that passion for it.
Yes. I think he had a passion for
succeeding, or
perhaps maybe it was more of a compulsion to completion.
Huh.
I mean, anybody who can carry 4 majors of undergraduate work in a regular 4 years of school, even after having a year matriculated at Oxford. He stayed in Tolkien's dorm, by the way. I don't have that. I've never had that. So he had a drive. I view him as a watermark for the kind of drive a person can have. It's not exactly an envy, it's pure respect. On the other hand, perhaps the injury is also a little bit of a metaphor for learning how to breathe. Take some time.
Yeah. An indicator.
Yeah.
Too, a little bit. And you teach other things beside classical to your students?
I teach
everything.
Honestly, classical, I try to include a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Especially for guitar. I think it's the thing I spent the most time practicing in my life, even though now I consider myself a bass player. But you really have to tailor the lesson to the student.
Yeah.
I'm not going to teach a kid with an Anthrax T-shirt how to play Tarrega on guitar to start off with. I'm going to show him how to play I'm the Man, or what's Scott Ian's other band, Basket Full of Puppies. Yeah, it's you have to reach them where they are.
What sort of, I guess you might say, benefits or have you seen that come from your students or anybody in terms of how the music can affect people? I mean, I guess it's usually positive, but I suppose it could be negative as well. But what is that power of music? What is it doing?
It might be greater than any of us can describe. I mean, humans, Beth earlier was talking about what's the first instrument? The body. we were probably doing that as Cro-Magnon men.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we've been at this for millennia. So there is a primal thing to it that defies simple explanation.
Yeah. It almost seems like we need to do it. And, you know, I didn't grow up in a musical household really, and I didn't start playing much until, you know, blues harmonica when I was 43 or something. So, but I look back and I could say, you know, I think things would have been better if I had played music. And I think a lot of people get kind of like we're disconnected from nature. People are disconnected from music. And I don't know. I think it'd be better if people were more connected.
Well, you yourself, I mean, you said you only started playing guitar how many years ago?
Well, like 5.
Right. And you've come a long way in that time, you know? So
it's so exciting. It's so
there
fun.
It is.
You know, I want to do it. And sometimes I want to do it and I want to, you know, have people think that I'm, you know, cool and can play well. And then I try not to think of it that way because I just want to do it, and you do want to play well, you know?
Well, you want to play well for you, though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's, for me, music is truly one of the last things I have true faith in. You know, words. Now, I've learned, I'm taking singing lessons specifically because, well, it'll make me more valuable, useful as a musician, but also I needed a connection to the words. It's something that I avoided for much of my life. I kind of held this antagonistic philosophy that words are the instruments of lies. You know, we can give any connotation to words that we choose to at the time, whereas a B flat is a B flat, and it's not going to lie to you. It's a B flat. So I held a bit of an oppositional stance to my detriment. And when I began to realize that, I started taking vocal lessons with a brilliant vocal coach in Collinsville, Connecticut named Star Cookman. She is a medical voice rehabilitationist, so she approaches it from a medical science standpoint. And so to have all of the explanations of the articulations of the vocal apparatus made a huge difference to me. But more specifically, I somehow never included speech in the neural net connected to my ear. Now, my ear I have robustly fed for 40 plus years.
Yeah.
The voice I have not.
You don't have the same sort of, you say you kind of remembered a lot of the music.
Yes.
But it wasn't quite the same for voice that way.
No, I remember voices. I remember timbres. I remember the shape of somebody's mouth. I remember the notes they sing. You know, as a 5-year-old, I watched the Blues Brothers every chance I could. Every time it came on HBO, I watched it so I could watch Aretha Franklin sing Think. I love Aretha, you know. If I could sing like anybody, it would be Aretha.
So, I mean, you really have you have a lot to give to people, and I'm sure, you know, 40 students a week, I mean, now for 20 years, I mean, I don't know.
It's a little lower than that now. I had to pace myself.
Right, but I mean, and it's not the same ones the whole time, so I don't know what the total number is, but you've touched an awful lot of people and seen, you think it helps them? These students?
I hope so.
I mean, do you think kids do better in school if they're playing music, or different?
That argument has been made a lot, and I haven't looked at grade transcripts, so I don't know for sure, but I can tell you I feel I've enriched a great many students' lives. The student I had for the longest was he started when he was about 10, and he finished, 9. He was 9 when he began, and he finished only when he graduated high school. So I had him for an additional 9 years, and his name was Adam Eaton. He's in a band called One Time Weekend that's doing very well in the Northeast right now. So, and I couldn't be more proud of him.
So what do you think that, part of the premise of this podcast really is talking with musicians and others about power of music and what we can do to help, to use music to help make a better world. Because I kind of believe that it's true, and maybe it's not true, but I think it's true. What do you have thoughts or ideas about what you might suggest people think about? Non-musicians, musicians.
What people think about? Can you?
What people think about music and how they can maybe incorporate it more or do more things with music that would, help. I mean, we see. Right at this camp right here, the Spirit of Music camp, we just see kind of incredible commonality and community and such a power in the music. My God, when Victor and all them were playing last night, it was
fantastic.
Like, oh my gosh, Stephen J. and his sons and Marcus Miller, and it was
Bob
Franceschini, and it's just like, that's magic. It's magic.
It truly was.
And it's like more magic, less army or something. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about any of that?
Well, I think I use my own experience. When I said earlier that experience is the greatest teacher, and I'm not sure I got to finish that thought. Maybe I trailed off. I tend to do that. I try to use my own experience as a guide for what is possible, what music can do to the native. And, when the memory of a song can bring me to tears without hearing it, I would like to show people how to get there.
Wow, that's powerful.
It's a cleansing thing. It's a communion with the shoulders of the greats that we stand upon this day. I feel like I can touch a bit of Ravel when I when I remember it and I listen in my head. I feel like I could just, even if but for a moment, sit at a table with Mozart and talk music with him. What does he have to say? Check out Don Giovanni, check out the Requiem.
I'm not so sure that you haven't sat down at a table and talked with Mozart.
In my dreams, perhaps.
But that's to be able to help people, realize that power, because that's a powerful thing, to be moved to tears by a piece of music, moved to tears in a good way, be affected emotionally, because we can't just live like automatons. We do need to be touched, and so many people are kind of stuck in this and that.
I do have a bit of a fear of that. It seems now here's where I go on my perhaps negative slant. Music will never die. It may need defibrillation. When your average streaming service pays out something to the effect of 4/10,000ths of a cent per stream, Peter Frampton and his 17 million streams of "Baby I Love Your Way" earned him $7,100. He testified as such in front of Congress.
Yeah,
that doesn't reward vulnerability, and so I fear that we're seeing a proliferation of advertising-driven music, or what I've heard some people refer to as nam chops. Many musicians seem to be sort of in the pattern where they want to show you how impressive they are, so they could package it in a 30-second Instagram video, the modern business card.
Uh-huh.
And so it seems to me that there are more great musicians per capita now than there has ever been in the history of the world. So where is the new composition? It's waiting. It's just not being coaxed out. Because there's no compensation. I mean, for lack of a better word, there's no compensation for it. When the music business is having so much robust success for everyone except the performing artists in general.
that's a serious issue, and I think it's something that, a community of musicians somehow, we got to fix that.
If I could dedicate my life to edging that trend to the reverse, I would feel I've accomplished something.
Yeah, I have felt for some time now, musicians, artists, teachers, they're the most important people, nurses, etc., the most important people in society. And, they're not getting paid the giant big bucks of people who just make money off other people's money.
Here's the secret. Everybody's important. The guy who builds your bathroom is important.
Yes.
Deb Guy who you saw earlier with the harps.
Yeah.
I mean, what she does, that moved me to tears. She plays harp for patients in hospice and ICU, and it is a great burden on the self to co-opt somebody's suffering to lift it from them.
Oh, it's such a giving thing that people appreciate.
What a beautiful
so
soul
much.
She is.
Oh my gosh. So, it's been great talking about some of these things. I really appreciate it. It's a beautiful night out here.
I'm really glad you gave me the opportunity. It also showed me, I mean, when I first came into camp, I was typically neurotic. Dylan Hughes, one of the volunteers who also became a camper here, I picked him up in Nashville Airport, and on the way home we were talking, and he made a very confident observation about an hour ago that I had a relaxed vibe that he had not seen in me when he came in, and when I brought him back here. This interview with you and I really validates that for me. I can feel my calm. I can feel a peace that I rarely experience anymore, especially living in Connecticut. I mean, Connecticut is a grumpy state.
Well, you are here at Wooten Woods, and we've been, meditating morning and evening in the Ohm Dome and having some amazing presentations and discussions about music. So I think that's something we can carry on, and I'll look forward to catching up down the road too, because I'm sure that there's more things that you can help show me as well.
It would be my pleasure. That's what I do.
You can help me figure out more about that Nagoni I brought down too. I'm still trying to, learn more about it. I needed to teach me a little more, So we'll check that out too.
I can't say I've played one very often. I mean, I understand tuning. I understand functional harmony, which is obviously it's not going. So it's more modal harmony when you talk about Nagoni. It's drone-ish. It's not chromatic. Yeah. Playing techniques, I'm still learning. That's an entirely different physicality that I really kind of have to get on board with first.
Well, we'll just see what we can do.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so great talking with you, Chris Anander.
Thank you, Jeff.
Friend, and, we will keep onward. Thank you very much. You've been listening to Planetary Gig Talk, Tales of Music and Magic. I'm your host, Jefferson Glassy, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gig Society. We talk with musicians and others about the power of music and how we can use music to help create a better world. Please check out our website, www.planetarygigs.org, for information about some of the organizations promoting music and musicians, resources about the power of music, books, movies, articles, including new research on music and the brain. We welcome your support. The Planetary Gig Society is a Section 501c3 charitable organization, and you can donate on the website. You also can receive a free email signature block demonstrating your support for Planetary Gig Society. Please follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. at Planetary Gigs. And we want to thank fabulous musician and teacher Eric Weinberg of Little Eric Studios for the Planetary Gig Talk music titled Chill Kid, It's Saul. So please check out Planetary Gig Talk on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. Subscribe and hear all the upcoming episodes. Thanks very much.